Ted Dabrowski with Wirepoints.com. That's a site you're going to want to check out. You're going to want to bookmark because I'm telling you, there is a lot of great information waiting for you every single day. Wirepoints connecting the dots between our economy, government, and business. Ted, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Riley. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's been a long time since you and I have had a chat. First off, for people who are unfamiliar with Wirepoints, give us a little rundown here because some people should be visiting your site.
Yeah, so at Wirepoints, we're a news and data and research outlet. And what we're trying to do is just take all this complex information and make it easy for people like people in Rockford and throughout the state to understand the mess that their cities and communities are in, and try to tie it back to the failed public policies that are coming out of Springfield. And if we can help them understand that, we'll work together to find a solution to fixing a lot of these problems.
And that's one of the things I like as well, Ted, because, anybody can throw out a critique. Some people do it better than others. But in addition to the critique, you are always offering a suggestion as well, a remedy to the problems that we're seeing.
Well, absolutely. The first part is telling the truth. And I think what we're trying to do at Wirepoints is just tell the truth about what the real problems are and how big they are. But at the end, we've got to provide a solution. Otherwise, we're just complainers like anybody else.
And there's been a lot of that going on in this state, and much of it for very, very good reason. We're getting very close to the election coming up. One of the things that's been a hot spot that's been kicked around back and forth is what exactly is Mr. Pritzker's progressive tax plan? What will it mean? If you watch the commercials, it's I guess it's just he and Bruce Rauner who will be paying. But I get the idea it'll be more than that.
Well, yeah, that's what Pritzker was smart, right? Every time in the past few years that the proponents of a progressive tax talked about their tax rates, the truth came out and that it hits the middle class. So Pritzker decided he's not even going to talk about rates. He's not going to talk about any of that stuff. He's just going to say only guys like Bruce and me, in other words, Bruce and JB, will have to pay more taxes, and everybody will get lower taxes. And we knew, one, that wasn't true, and two, we felt like we had to tell people the truth. So since he wouldn't run the numbers, we did.
And, some of the spending estimates that I have read thus far that would talk about the reflection in taxes, spending estimates range from $10.7 billion, Rich Miller over at Capital Facts, to $18 billion over at Illinois Policy Institute.
Well, we know he wants to spend more, and that's the dual nature of his promises. I'm going to spend a lot of money on all the kind of things that you want, and I'm not going to even tax you for it, right? And so it's that combination of those two promises that we said, well, we got to challenge that. We got to see what the truth really looks like, and that's what we did in this most recent paper we did. We called it out, and we find that he can't live with both promises. Something has to give.
And that thing that gives is probably that thing in your wallet that you're trying to hold on to for as long as you can.
Well, that's exactly right. First we took him at his word, and we said, okay, if Pritzker was really honest and said that he only wants to tax millionaires, what we did is we took the numbers from the Department of Revenue, right, all the tax numbers they have there. We took his promises that he's made, and we just tried to run the numbers and show that if he only taxed millionaires, right, those making taxable income of $1 million or more, the tax rate to fund just his low-end promises, his $11 billion promises, would take the tax rate from millionaires to 24%. I can tell you this, Riley. There's a lot of people who pay a lot of taxes, but the rich guys won't stick around to pay 24%. Every one of them will be gone, or they'll find ways to move their money and move their wealth out of the state, and that would really hurt Illinois.
Especially a state like ours that leads the Midwest in outbound migration, which, we're not necessarily losing people to the Sun Belt or anything else. We're losing people to our neighboring states.
Well, absolutely. I've spent a lot of time studying Rockford, and, Rockford's losing population. Its property taxes are triple the rate, or even almost 4 times the rate of Indiana. You've had flat, stagnant incomes, even declining incomes for the private sector. The last thing a place like Rockford needs is just more taxes, because as I didn't say, since the millionaires won't pay 24%, that's not going to work. That means that the real progressive tax structure will have to hit ordinary Illinoisans making $55,000, $70,000 with marginal rates of 8.5%, 9.5%, 10%, and that's where the pain comes in for people like Rockford.
That's amazing. And looking at some of these numbers, if his definition of the rich is loosened to 150,000 plus annual incomes, you guys estimate legislators would have to raise the state income tax to 13.6%.
That's right. So the rate for all those making over 150,000, that rate for all those dollars over that amount would be taxed at 13.6. That's higher than California's millionaire tax. and their millionaire tax only goes on people making more than $1 million. Under Pritzker's definition, it would be $150,000. So it's really, really punishing for Illinoisans.
When you talk about, how the fact that millionaires are not going to stick around because they don't have to pay that kind of rate, you saw that similar sort of exodus of wealthy people in New York a number of years ago as well.
Well, you've seen it in Connecticut, you've seen it in New Jersey. Every time they try to mess around with the people who pay the most taxes, they can leave. And you have to remember, these people are very mobile. We're talking about 2020 almost, where we're in a digital world, a mobile world. And people don't have to stay in one spot, and they certainly don't have to keep the productive assets in one spot, so they can move them. And when that happened in New Jersey, they lost one of their billionaires, and it put a huge dent in the state coffers.
And, we just mentioned, with the amount of people looking to get out, to go someplace where their dollar goes further, where they're not looking at quadruple the property tax and all that, this is going to speed that along. And it seems to me the most dangerous place to be after Election Day would be standing on the border.
Well, yeah, you guys are so close to the border there in Rockford. So many people are close to Indiana, the other people are close to Missouri. It's scary to think of how much lower those property tax bills are. You get a bigger house, bigger lots, all that kind of advantage, and you don't have the corruption and the path that Illinois is in. So, it really behooves us to fight against this progressive tax, and to really fight for the policies that will change spending, reduce spending, make us more effective, more efficient, and compete with other states. In the end, we've got to figure out how we compete with an Indiana and a Wisconsin, not make it easy for them to kick our butt.
We're spending some time with Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints, wirepoints.com. Like I said, that's a site you're going to want to bookmark and grab and have a look at. I know you look at this stuff and you look around the nation and see what other states are doing as well. Is there any place where the implementation of a progressive tax over the flat taxes, has it been the panacea of what they needed to get things together?
Well, what you see is when states go to progressive taxes, they promise to tax only the wealthy. Right, but over time, when they need more money, you can only tax the wealthy so much before they move, right?
Right.
So then those higher rates just creep down the income ladder, and slowly you look, and suddenly you have 8% rates on $50,000, and that's something we did at Wirepoints. We looked at our nearby states that have progressive taxes, and their progressive tax schemes tax the middle class, our $50,000 or $70,000 people, more than we do in Illinois. Those progressive tax schemes are not for the rich. They hurt the middle class, and that's the point we're trying to make. The lies that they're being told about not hitting the middle class are just lies.
Some of these examples that you give, for example, Illinois with $75,000 in taxable income, pay nearly $900 more in taxes, up 24% compared to the current flat. That's on top of the 32% income tax because he or she got hit with that last year.
Yeah, what's amazing, it's funny that we don't. They've got us not even talking about that 32% increase we had last year, right?
Right.
$5 billion tax increase. That was the big thing. That was the remedy. That was the thing that was going to keep us from going into junk bond rating. That was the thing that was going to fix the state. And here you go, a year later, you have a candidate asking for at least $11 billion, massive tax hikes on top of it. And what it proves to you is that you can't give them enough money. They will always spend more. And what we have to do is, on our side, whoever the reformers are, push for the reforms that reduce spending and let people keep some of the money. Let them keep the value in their homes. That's the biggest concern, is that we're taxing people out of their homes, and that's the most dangerous thing we can do in Illinois.
What can people do to find out more? Obviously, read more and get into the ballot box. I know you guys have got an extensive piece on this one. If we were to go over this by paragraph, we'd be here for well over an hour. But it's a really outstanding read. What else can people do to keep themselves up to speed on this, Ted?
Well, I think of course we have an election in just a few days, so this will be over. But I think the best thing people can do, and it's the easiest thing, is to get really active in your local community. A place like Rockford, go into those school board meetings, go into the city council meetings, because all that feeds up to the state level. We have to collectively oppose all these bad spending decisions, these bloated governments, and if we do it collectively across the state, it'll eventually push up to the top in Springfield. But in the meantime, we're just going to have to call our legislators, call those guys around Rockford and say, you do not want a progressive tax. It's going to be a battle because it may be that those proponents of progressive tax outnumber those of us who oppose it, we'll have to see. We'll have to make our case, keep fighting, and certainly we can't let the legislators off the hook.